Chapter 17 of She. This is a Librivox recording. All Librivox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit librivox.org. Recording by Nick Gisburn. She, by H. Rider Haggard. Chapter 17. The Balance Turns. In a few minutes, following the lamps of the mutes, which, held out from the body as a bearer holds water in a vessel, had the appearance of floating down the darkness by themselves, we came to a stair which led us to She's anteroom, the same that Billali had crept up upon on all fours on the previous day. Here I would have bid the Queen adieu, but she would not. "Nay," she said, "enter with me, O Holly, for of a truth thy conversation pleaseth me. Think, O Holly, for 2,000 years have I had none to converse with, save slaves and my own thoughts, and though of all this thinking hath much wisdom come, and many secrets been made plain, yet am I weary of my thoughts, and have come to loathe mine own society, for surely the food that memory gives to eat is bitter to the taste, and it is only with the teeth of hope that we can bear to bite it. Now, though thy thoughts are green and tender, as becometh one so young, yet are they those of a thinking brain, and in truth thou dost bring back to my mind certain of those old philosophers with whom in days bygone I have disputed at Athens, and at Becca in Arabia, for thou hast the same crabbed air and dusty look, as though thou hadst passed thy days in reading ill-writ Greek, and been stained dark with the grime of manuscripts. So draw the curtain, and sit here by my side, and we will eat fruit, and talk of pleasant things. See, I will again unveil to thee. Thou hast brought it on thyself, O Holly. Fairly have I warned thee, and thou shalt call me beautiful, as even those old philosophers were wont to do. Fie upon them, forgetting their philosophy." And without more ado, she stood up and shook the white wrappings from her, and came forth shining and splendid, like some glittering snake when she has cast her slough, aye, and fixed her wonderful eyes upon me, more deadly than any basilisks, and pierced me through and through with their beauty, and sent her light laugh ringing through the air like chimes of silver bells. A new mood was on her, and the very colour of her mind seemed to change beneath it. It was no longer torture-torn and hateful, as I had seen it when she was cursing her dead rival by the leaping flames, no longer icily terrible as in the judgment hall, no longer rich and sombre and splendid like a Tyrian cloth, as in the dwellings of the dead. No, her mood now was that of Aphrodite triumphing. Life, radiant, ecstatic, wonderful, seemed to flow from her and around her. Softly she laughed and sighed, and swift her glances flew. She shook her heavy tresses, and their perfume filled the place. She struck her little sandal foot upon the floor, and hummed a snatch of some old Greek epithalamium. All the majesty was gone, or did but lurk and faintly flicker through her laughing eyes, like lightning seen through sunlight. She had cast off the terror of the leaping flame, the cold power of judgment that was even now being done, and the wise sadness of the tombs, cast them off and put them behind her, like the white shroud she wore, and now stood out the incarnation of lovely, tempting womanhood, made more perfect, and in a way more spiritual, than ever woman was before. "So, my Holly, sit there where thou canst see me. It is by thine own wish, remember. Again I say, blame me not if thou dost wear away thy little span with such a sick pain at the heart that thou wouldst fain have died before ever thy curious eyes were set upon me. There, sit so, and tell me, for in truth I am inclined for praises, tell me, am I not beautiful? Nay, speak not so hastily. Consider well the point. Take me feature by feature, forgetting not my form, and my hands and feet, and my hair, and the whiteness of my skin, and then tell me truly, hast thou ever known a woman who in aught, aye, in one little portion of her beauty, in the curve of an eyelash even, or the modelling of a shell-like ear, is justified to hold a light before my loveliness? Now my waist. Perchance thou thinkest it too large, but of a truth it is not so. It is this golden snake that is too large, and doth not bind it as it should. It is a wide snake, and knoweth that it is ill to tie in the waist. But see, give me thy hands, so, now press them round me, and there, with but a little force, thy fingers touch, O Holly. I could bear it no longer. I am but a man, and she was more than a woman. Heaven knows what she was, I do not. But then and there I fell upon my knees before her, and told her in a sad mixture of languages, for such moments confused the thoughts, that I worshipped her as never woman was worshipped, and that I would give my immortal soul to marry her, which at that time I certainly would have done, and so indeed would any other man, or all the race of men rolled into one. For a moment she looked surprised, and then she began to laugh, and clap her hands in glee. "Oh, so soon, O Holly," she said. "I wondered how many minutes it would need to bring thee to thy knees. I have not seen a man kneel before me for so many days, and believe me, to a woman's heart the sight is sweet. Ay, wisdom and length of days take not from that dear pleasure which is our sex's only right. What wouldst thou? What wouldst thou? Thou dost not know what thou doest. Have I not told thee that I am not for thee? I love but one, and thou art not the man. Ah, Holly, for all thy wisdom, and in a way thou art wise, thou art but a fool running after folly. Thou wouldst look into mine eyes, thou wouldst kiss me. Well, if it pleaseth thee, look." And she bent herself towards me, and fixed her dark and thrilling orbs upon my own. Ay, and kiss too, if thou wilt, for thanks be given to the scheme of things, kisses leave no marks, except upon the heart. But if thou dost kiss, I tell thee of a surety wilt thou eat out thy breast with love of me, and die. And she bent yet further towards me, till her soft hair brushed my brow, and her fragrant breath played upon my face, and made me faint and weak. Then of a sudden, even as I stretched out my hands to clasp, she straightened herself, and a quick change passed over her. Reaching out her hand, she held it over my head, and it seemed to me that something flowed from it that chilled me back to common sense, and a knowledge of propriety and the domestic virtues. "Enough of this wanton folly," she said with a touch of sternness. "Listen, Holly. Thou art a good and honest man, and I fain would spare thee, but oh, it is so hard for woman to be merciful. I have said I am not for thee, therefore let thy thoughts pass by me like an idle wind, and the dust of thy imagination sink again into the depths, well of despair if thou wilt. Thou dost not know me, Holly. Hadst thou seen me but 10 hours past, when my passion seized me, thou hadst shrunk from me in fear and trembling. I am of many moods, and like the water in that vessel, I reflect many things. But they pass, my Holly, they pass, and are forgotten. Only the water is the water still, and I still am I, and that which maketh the water maketh it, and that which maketh me, nor can my quality be altered. Therefore pay no heed to what I seem, seeing that thou canst not know what I am. If thou troublest me again, I will veil myself, and thou shalt behold my face no more." I rose, and sank on the cushioned couch beside her, yet quivering with emotion, though for a moment my mad passion had left me, as the leaves of a tree quiver still, although the gust be gone that stirred them. I did not dare to tell her that I had seen her in that deep and hellish mood, muttering incantations to the fire in the tomb. "So," she went on, "now eat some fruit. Believe me, it is the only true food for man. Oh, tell me of the philosophy of that Hebrew Messiah, who came after me, and who thou sayest dost now rule Rome, and Greece, and Egypt, and the barbarians beyond. It must have been a strange philosophy that he taught, for in my day the peoples would have naught of our philosophies. Revel and lust and drink, blood and cold steel, and the shock of men gathered in the battle, these were the canons of their creeds." I had recovered myself a little by now, and feeling bitterly ashamed of the weakness into which I had been betrayed, I did my best to expound to her the doctrines of Christianity, to which, however, with a single exception of our conception of heaven and hell, I found that she paid but scant attention, her interest being all directed towards the man who taught them. Also I told her that among her own people, the Arabs, another prophet, one Mohammed, had arisen and preached a new faith, to which many millions of mankind now adhered. "Ah," she said, "I see. 2 new religions. I have known so many, and doubtless there have been many more since I knew aught beyond these caves of Kor. Mankind asks ever of the skies to vision out what lies behind them. It is terror for the end, and but a subtler form of selfishness. This it is that breeds religions. Mark, my Holly, each religion claims the future for its followers, or at least the good thereof. The evil is for those benighted ones who will have none of it. Seeing the light, the true believers worship, as the fishers see the stars, but dimly. The religions come and the religions pass, and the civilizations come and pass, and naught endures but the world and human nature. Ah, if man would but see that hope is from within, and not from without, that he himself must work out his own salvation. He is there, and within him is the breath of life and the knowledge of good and evil, as good and evil is to him. Thereon let him build and stand erect, and not cast himself before the image of some unknown god, modelled like his poor self, but with a bigger brain to think the evil thing, and a longer arm to do it. I thought to myself, which shows how old such reasoning is, being indeed one of the recurring qualities of theological discussion, that her argument sounded very like some that I have heard in the 19th century, and in other places than the caves of Kor, and with which, by the way, I totally disagree, but I did not care to try and discuss the question with her. To begin with, my mind was too weary with all the emotions through which I had passed, and in the second place, I knew that I should get the worst of it. It is weary work enough to argue with an ordinary materialist, who hurls statistics and whole strata of geological facts at your head, whilst you can only buffet him with deductions and instincts and the snowflakes of faith, that are, alas, so apt to melt in the hot embers of our troubles. How little chance then should I have against one whose brain was supernaturally sharpened, and who had 2,000 years of experience, besides all manner of knowledge of the secrets of nature at her command. Feeling that she would be more likely to convert me than I should to convert her, I thought it best to leave the matter alone, and so sat silent. Many a time since then have I bitterly regretted that I did so, for thereby I lost the only opportunity I can remember having had of ascertaining what Asher really believed, and what her philosophy was. "Well, my Holly," she continued, "and so those people of mine have found a prophet, a false prophet thou sayest, for he is not thine own, and indeed I doubt it not. Yet in my day was it otherwise, for then we Arabs had many gods. Alat there was, and Saba, the host of heaven, Al-Utsa, and Mana the stony one, for whom the blood of victims flowed, and Wad, and Sawa, and Yaghuth, the lion of the dwellers in Yaman, and Ya'uk, the horse of Morad, and Nasser the eagle of Hamayar, ay, and many more. Oh, the folly of it all, the shame and the pitiful folly! Yet when I rose in wisdom and spoke thereof, surely they would have slain me in the name of their outraged gods. Well, so hath it ever been. But, my Holly, art thou weary of me already, that thou dost sit so silent? Or dost thou fear lest I should teach thee my philosophy? For know I have a philosophy. What would a teacher be without her own philosophy? And if thou dost vex me overmuch, beware, for I will have thee learn it, and thou shalt be my disciple, and we twain will found a faith that shall swallow up all others. Faithless man! And but half an hour since thou wast upon thy knees. The posture does not suit thee, Holly, swearing that thou didst love me. What shall we do? Nay, I have it. I will come and see this youth, the lion, as the old man Bilali calls him, who came with thee, and who is so sick. The fever must have run its course by now, and if he is about to die, I will recover him. Fear not, my Holly, I shall use no magic. Have I not told thee that there is no such thing as magic, though there is such a thing as understanding and applying the forces which are in nature? Go now, and presently, when I have made the drug ready, I will follow thee. Footnote. Asher was a great chemist. Indeed, chemistry appears to have been her only amusement and occupation. She had one of the caves fitted up as a laboratory, and although her appliances were necessarily rude, the results that she attained were, as will become clear in the course of this narrative, sufficiently surprising. L.H.H. End of footnote. Accordingly I went, only to find Job and Ustane in a great state of grief, declaring that Leo was in the throes of death, and that they had been searching for me everywhere. I rushed to the couch and glanced at him. Clearly he was dying. He was senseless and breathing heavily, but his lips were quivering, and every now and again a little shudder ran down his frame. I knew enough of doctoring to see that in another hour he would be beyond the reach of earthly help, perhaps in another 5 minutes. How I cursed my selfishness, and the folly that had kept me lingering by Arsha's side, while my dear boy lay dying. Alas and alas! How easily the best of us are lighted down to evil by the gleam of a woman's eyes. What a wicked wretch was I! Actually, for the last half-hour I had scarcely thought of Leo, and this, be it remembered, of the man who for 20 years had been my dearest companion, and the chief interest of my existence. And now perhaps it was too late. I wrung my hands and glanced round. Ustane was sitting by the couch, and in her eyes burnt the dull light of despair. Job was blubbering, I am sorry I cannot name his distress by any more delicate word, audibly in the corner. Seeing my eye fixed upon him, he went outside to give way to his grief in the passage. Obviously the only hope lay in Arsha. She, and she alone, unless indeed she was an impostor, which I could not believe, could save him. I would go and implore her to come. As I started to do so, however, Job came flying into the room, his hair literally standing on end with terror. "Oh, God help us, sir!" he ejaculated in a frightened whisper. "Here's a corpse a-coming sliding down the passage." For a moment I was puzzled, but presently, of course, it struck me that he must have seen Arsha, wrapped in her grave-like garment, and been deceived by the extraordinary undulating smoothness of her walk into a belief that she was a white ghost gliding towards him. Indeed, at that very moment the question was settled, for Arsha herself was in the apartment, or rather cave. Job turned and saw her sheeted form, and then, with a convulsive howl of "Here it comes!" sprang into a corner, and jammed his face against the wall, and Ustane, guessing whose the dread presence must be, prostrated herself upon her face. "Thou comest in good time, Arsha," I said, "for my boy lies at the point of death." "So," she said softly, "provided he be not dead, it is no matter, for I can bring him back to life, my Holly. Is that man there thy servant, and is that the method wherewith thy servants greet strangers in thy country?" "He is frightened of thy garb. It hath a death-like air," I answered. She laughed. "And the girl? Ah, I see now. It is she of whom thou didst speak to me. Well, bid them both to leave us, and we will see to this sick lion of thine. I love not that underlings should perceive my wisdom." Thereon I told Ustane in Arabic and Job in English both to leave the room, an order which the latter obeyed readily enough, and was glad to obey, for he could not in any way subdue his fear. But it was otherwise with Ustane. "What does she want?" she whispered, divided between her fear of the terrible queen and her anxiety to remain near Leo. "It is surely the right of a wife to be near her husband when he dieth." "Nay, I will not go, my lord the baboon." "Why doth not that woman leave us, my Holly?" asked Arsha from the other end of the cave, where she was engaged in carelessly examining some of the sculptures on the wall. "She is not willing to leave Leo," I answered, not knowing what to say. Arsha wheeled round, and pointing to the girl Ustane, said one word, and one only, but it was quite enough, for the tone in which it was said meant volumes. "Go!" And then Ustane crept past her on her hands and knees, and went. "Thou seest, my Holly," said Arsha with a little laugh, "it was needful that I should give these people a lesson in obedience. That girl went nigh to disobeying me, but then she did not learn this morn how I treat the disobedient. Well, she has gone, and now let me see the youth." And she glided towards the couch on which Leo lay, with his face in the shadow, and turned towards the wall. "He hath a noble shape," she said, as she bent over him to look upon his face. Next second her tall and willowy form was staggering back across the room, as though she had been shot or stabbed, staggering back till at last she struck the cavern wall, and then there burst from her lips the most awful and unearthly scream that I ever heard in all my life. "What is it, Asha?" I cried. "Is he dead?" She turned and sprang towards me like a tigress. "Thou dog!" she said in a terrible whisper, which sounded like the hiss of a snake. "Why didst thou hide this from me?" And she stretched out her arm, and I thought that she was about to slay me. "What?" I ejaculated, in the most lively terror. "What?" "Ah," she said, "perchance thou didst not know. Learn, my Holly, learn. There lies my lost Callicrates. Callicrates, who has come back to me at last, as I knew he would, as I knew he would." And she began to sob and to laugh, and generally to conduct herself like any other lady who is a little upset, murmuring, "Callicrates, Callicrates." Nonsense, thought I to myself, but I did not like to say it, and indeed at that moment I was thinking of Leo's life, having forgotten everything else in that terrible anxiety. What I feared now was that he should die while she was carrying on. "Unless thou art able to help him, Asha," I put in, by way of a reminder, "thy Callicrates will soon be far beyond thy calling. Surely he dieth even now." "True," she said, with a start. "Oh, why did I not come before? I am unnerved, my hand trembles, even mine, and yet it is very easy. Here thou, Holly, take this phial," and she produced a tiny jar of pottery from the folds of her garment, "and pour the liquid in it down his throat. It will cure him if he be not dead. Swift now, swift, the man dies." I glanced towards him. It was true enough. Leo was in his death struggle. I saw his poor face turning ashen, and heard the breath begin to rattle in his throat. The phial was stoppered with a little piece of wood. I drew it with my teeth, and a drop of the fluid within flew out upon my tongue. It had a sweet flavour, and for a second made my head swim, and a mist gather before my eyes. But happily the effect passed away as swiftly as it had arisen. When I reached Leo's side, he was plainly expiring. His golden head was slowly turning from side to side, and his mouth was slightly open. I called to Asha to hold his head, and this she managed to do, though the woman was quivering from head to foot, like an aspen leaf or a startled horse. Then, forcing the jaw a little more open, I poured the contents of the phial into his mouth. Instantly a little vapour arose from it, as happens when one disturbs nitric acid, and this sight did not increase my hopes, already faint enough, of the efficacy of the treatment. One thing, however, was certain: the death throes ceased. At first I thought because he had got beyond them, and crossed the awful river. His face turned to a livid pallor, and his heartbeats, which had been feeble enough before, seemed to die away altogether. Only the eyelids still twitched a little. In my doubt I looked up at Asha, whose head wrapping had slipped back in her excitement when she went reeling across the room. She was still holding Leo's head, and with a face as pale as his own, watching his countenance with such an expression of agonized anxiety as I had never seen before. Clearly she did not know if he would live or die. 5 minutes slowly passed, and I saw that she was abandoning hope. Her lovely oval face seemed to fall in and grow visibly thinner beneath the pressure of a mental agony whose pencil drew black lines about the hollows of her eyes. The coral faded even from her lips, till they were as white as Leo's face, and quivered pitifully. It was shocking to see her. Even in my own grief I felt for hers. "Is it too late?" I gasped. She hid her face in her hands, and made no answer, and I too turned away. But as I did so, I heard a deep-drawn breath, and looking down perceived a line of colour creeping up Leo's face, then another, and then, wonder of wonders, the man we had thought dead turned over on his side. "Thou seest," I said in a whisper. "I see," she answered hoarsely. "He is saved. I thought we were too late. Another moment, one little moment more, and he had been gone." And she burst into an awful flood of tears, sobbing as though her heart would break, and yet looking lovelier than ever as she did it. At last she ceased. "Forgive me, my Holly, forgive me for my weakness," she said. "Thou seest after all I am a very woman. Think, now think of it. This morning didst thou speak of the place of torment appointed by this new religion of thine. Hell or Hades thou didst call it, a place where the vital essence lives and retains an individual memory, and where all the errors and faults of judgment, and unsatisfied passions, and the unsubstantial terrors of the mind, wherewith it hath at any time had to do, come to mock and haunt, and gibe and wring the heart for ever and for ever with the vision of its own hopelessness. Thus, even thus, have I lived for full 2,000 years, for some 66 generations as ye reckon time, in a hell, as thou callest it, tormented by the memory of a crime, tortured day and night with an unfulfilled desire, without companionship, without comfort, without death, and led on only down my dreary road by the marsh lights of hope, which, though they flickered here and there, and now glowed strong, and now were not, yet, as my skill told me, would one day lead unto my deliverer. And then, think of it still, O Holly, for never shalt thou hear such another tale, or see such another scene, nay, not even if I give thee 10,000 years of life, and thou shalt have it in payment if thou wilt. Think, at last my deliverer came, he for whom I had watched and waited through the generations. At the appointed time he came to seek me, as I knew that he must come, for my wisdom could not err, though I knew not when or how. Yet see how ignorant I was. See how small my knowledge, and how faint my strength. For hours he lay there, sick unto death, and I felt it not. I who had waited for him for 2,000 years, I knew it not. And then at last I see him, and behold, my chance is gone but by a hair's breadth, even before I have it, for he is in the very jaws of death, whence no power of mine can draw him. And if he die, surely must the hell be lived through once more. Once more must I face the weary centuries, and wait till the time in its fullness shall bring my beloved back to me. And then thou gavest him the medicine, and that 5 minutes dragged long before I knew if he would live or die. And I tell thee that all the 60 generations that are gone were not so long as that 5 minutes. But they passed at length, and still he showed no sign, and I knew that if the drug works not then, so far as I have had knowledge, it works not at all. Then thought I that he was once more dead, and all the tortures of all the years gathered themselves into a single venomed spear, and pierced me through and through, because again I had lost Callicrates. And then, when all was done, behold, he sighed, behold, he lived, and I knew that he would live, for none die on whom the drug takes hold. Think of it now, my Holly, think of the wonder of it. He will sleep for 12 hours, and then the fever will have left him. She stopped, and laid her hand upon his golden head, and then bent down and kissed his brow with a chastened abandonment of tenderness that would have been beautiful to behold had not the sight cut me to the heart, for I was jealous. End of chapter 17.